And right now, Larry Johnson's calling in, you guys. So we're going to go to Larry Johnson right now. Larry, do I have you on the line?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for phoning in. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So for our listening audience, this is Larry Johnson, former great running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, who's recently become one of the biggest truth speakers online that I'm very grateful for, and he's even given some shout-outs to this knowledge of gematria, which I very much appreciate. Larry, since we got you, what has inspired you to do what you're doing right now?
Just the fact that I know what it's like to be fooled. I know what it's like to be tricked and hoodwinked and bamboozled. So I don't want this generation to fall under the same spell I fell under and not be able to come out of it. Because my belief is that the time is growing short. You see the evil picking up more and more each month. It's always something new, something disgusting, and I want people to understand there's a way out of it if they understand the truth of all of it.
Indeed. Larry, did you watch the college football championship this year?
No, I didn't, but I saw some of the scores and all that, so I really don't really pay attention to it anymore.
Well, were you aware that in the fourth quarter, the announcer did a numerology lesson on the death of Billy Cannon, the former Heisman winner for LSU, who beat Clemson the same year in the championship in New Orleans?
Oh, that's what. Yeah, I heard of that.
Okay, so the thing that's beyond coincidence is that the same day that Billy Cannon died is the same day that Joe Burrow transferred to LSU. And, of course, went on to win the Heisman and then the championship over Clemson in New Orleans. So, a perfect mirror of what Billy Cannon accomplished. And Billy Cannon did it 60 years before him, and Joe Burrow had 60 passing touchdowns this year. The announcer made a point about several of these things, and for years I've been saying that all of this stuff is perfectly scripted from college to pro, and it's all ritual. I've heard you say as a player, you didn't really see the rigging while you're in the game, but you see it now. Do you think that any of the games that you were in as a college player, there could have been a perfect fix-in on?
I wouldn't say not in college because, we weren't really ranked. I think that stuff only kind of happens with teams that are ranked and it's supposed to convey some type of weird message under this matrix. When I was playing, I just didn't see any of those games. Like I was with Joe Paterno where he made all of those specific games where he broke records as far as being the all-time winning coach. I was with him and none of those games seemed fixed. Those games seemed like, anything was done with them. I don't know. Like being a player, you are under the matrix. You're under this system where you can't even tell what's going on. You just feel like you're playing and everything is the plays. And when you get to the league, you feel like, guys are making, plays. And when you look at the game now, you can tell something's not right.
And it seems to get more and more far-fetched every year, if you will. Just the incredible comebacks. And, I hear what you're saying. So, Larry, just so you know, when you called in, we're getting close to the commercial break. We got quick commercial breaks. It's coming up in 3 minutes. But if you can stay with me through the commercial break, I'd appreciate it. But just before we get there, I've also heard you say that you're not sure the games were fixed in the time you were in the NFL. But here's my perspective as an outsider looking in. I was wide awake when 9/11 happened, and the Patriot Act, and then all of a sudden the New England Patriots were the greatest team there ever was. And I just thought, look at it. I mean, 9/11, Patriot Act, Patriots. Drew Bledsoe's career is ended by a New York Jet with the Patriots, essentially. Like the New York Jets took down the towers, and they look like massive 11s in New York, the 11th state, on the 11th of the month, and Bledsoe wore 11. I was just looking at all that back then. I didn't know gematria, but I just saw there was some sort of rituals going on, a national emergency on 911. I mean, looking back, maybe you didn't realize it was fixed while you're in the league, but I've heard you say you're not sure if it was fixed. Then don't you think, like, all of that's probably beyond coincidence?
it's got to be a bill influences, but people don't really understand this part of it. It's entertainment. That is why after every game, NFL always plays that goofy little jingle at the end of it where they spin the shield around and say, this has been a presentation of the National Football League. They're telling you it's a presentation. It's entertainment. It's supposed to trick you or is witchcraft into making you think that it's just like a game outside with your boys. When it's not, it's a presentation. They're presenting you a specific product, and they know they've been changing it enough to match their weird little satanic agenda. But if you look at the Atlanta Falcons game and Tom Brady, that one of those comebacks, I knew something wasn't right. And when you look at the Rams game and the Patriots game, you knew something wasn't right. I knew something wasn't right because they were playing defense 3 to 4 deep when they allowed Edelman to all of a sudden run these weird 5 and 10-yard ends, and he made an NFL MVP, a Super Bowl MVP off that game by just running drags. Now, Marcus Peters, they got the fastest backfield. How can you let Edelman burn you on the underneath unless they're telling you that we're going to make him get the Super Bowl MVP, and we're going to back all the DBs and linebackers up so he can have the under routes.
Indeed. I'm saying the exact same things. And then you learn gematria. You realize things like Super Bowl most valuable player sums to 108. The Super Bowl last year was exactly 108 days from Edelman's birthday, and that's a special number. There's a reason they sew 108 game balls for the Super Bowl. In gematria, geometry equals 108, and the shape of the football is the Vesica Piscis, one of the most important shapes in sacred geometry. Vesica Piscis equals 53, while you got that 53 and a third yard wide field and 53-man roster. Larry, we're about to hit the commercial break. It's just a 2-minute break. You know what? Since we're on YouTube streaming too, we can still talk through the break. The people on the air will miss it. For people on the air, if you want to flip over to YouTube, Gematria Effect News, you can hear us talk through the break. But, yeah, we'll just continue on, Larry. So what I wonder is, I mean, you're really putting yourself out there as a professional athlete, and I heard you do another interview and say, you know, your livelihood still kind of depends on the NFL because essentially your NFL pension. I mean, do you feel like you're putting yourself in danger of financial punishment or worse doing this?
No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, obviously, say like this, if they cut off my pension and all that, and I end up going crazy or something happens to me where I lose my mind or something and I end up hurting somebody, they could sue the NFL. And they could sue the NFL for hundreds of billions because you took away a guy who needed the money to survive or live. They could look at it like that. So I don't think it's that deep enough. I think we're so far gone in this matrix system, it don't really matter what I say. People think I'm crazy anyway. So this one person is not really going to change what their program is already is. Like you said, like this program been set 100 to 200 years before this even happened. Like these things are set. They're on a like it's on autopilot right now. So me talking about this really doesn't make any difference. It may wake up like maybe a couple 100, 200 people here or there, but it's not really going to change and destroy the system.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, it's tough to beat this system. People are really invested in the matrix. I try to remain optimistic and think. I read a book long ago when I was a teenager and feeling somewhat hopeless about what was going on in the world, and it was about how you need 20% of a population to change the minds of the other 80%. And it is difficult to get 2 out of 10 people in this society, because I'd say about 1 in 100 are awake, maybe a little bit better than that. But I still maintain this optimism, and I got to admit, I see you on Twitter. You have hundreds of people sharing all your stuff, and I wish it was thousands and tens of thousands. But if you keep at it, it could get to be that. So with what you just said, I'm just the people who are close to you, like your closest friends and family. What's happened in the time you've been speaking out?
I don't have any closer friends or family anymore. I barely even speak to my own family these days. And that's because when you speak more truth and it goes against people who are working in that system, it's kind of embarrassing. It makes me look even more insane, because if you got a family that's invested in this system, in this matrix, it's hard to try to pull them out of it because their identity is attached to this system. So I can't really do anything. Their success is, who they are. the reputation is all based on this matrix system, and I can't pull them out of it. So I kind of distance myself away, and hopefully they find out sooner or later. But it's going to be really getting harder. More and more we go into this, it's going to be harder to escape it because these things are happening for a reason. I think if you see the way Satanism has just really creeped into the sports arena, it's going to be the bottom's going to fall out one day. And I feel fear for a lot of people who are thinking that we have a lot of time left to just mess around, and we don't. Professional athletes like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, they're doing satanic things inside those sports systems, and I don't think people are fully awake to what's going on.
So that's another question I have for you, because I agree. The controllers of these leagues, the media, the powers that shouldn't be, as I call them, they are absolutely Luciferian or satanic. They do not have positive intentions, and they have essentially what I would refer to as their puppets, their top entertainers, their top athletes, going out and carrying out their rituals. Did you ever get a hint of this or a taste of this when you were playing in the NFL?
This the funny part. Like, I signed I signed a modeling deal with Rockaware to just wear Rockaware and be in the shows. Then I signed a S. Carter cleat deal just to wear the Jay-Z's cleat deal that he had with Reebok, and he paid me for that. And at the time, I was in the end zone throwing up the diamond. See, I'm thinking it was just strictly rap and hip-hop, and it was from Rockefeller, not knowing I'm throwing up Masonic pyramids. So then I stepped back and looked at this after I was done. I felt really ashamed that I was doing it. I was embarrassed that, damn, this is what I was doing the whole time. I didn't even know I was doing it. I didn't really see the really satanic side of it because I was so locked into the witchcraft. I thought I was, representing Jay-Z, but it's come to find out he's a Luciferian. And, his wife's a Luciferian. Like, it goes so far deep into it that I just didn't dig hard enough.
Sure. Okay, so here's I've received a lot of criticism for putting a lot of the blame on Freemasonry for what I see going on in the world, and I've seen that you're also talking about Freemasonry. And again, the point I come from is I realize, okay, this nation, founded by many Masons, the nation's capital is named after a Freemason. This is the most powerful secret society in the world, and it has been around for a long time. It's well established. It's had millions of members for centuries. And Masonry has so much influence. American football is credited to the Scottish Rite Freemason Walter Camp. American baseball is credited to the Freemason Abner Doubleday, and you can go right on down the list. So I just see so much influence from these secret societies, and then I see the numerical rituals, the gematria. All of this stuff is Masonic. What is it that made you start calling out Masonry's role in this?
Because I started digging deep. I did the same thing you did. I was like, well, all right, I knew Jay-Z. I saw the picture of him being a Freemason. But then you start digging, and like you said, George Washington, then you start understanding the link between all of these pagan gods that they worship. And then I started seeing rap stars go from putting their fists in the air to start doing devil horns. Then I started connecting to that. And then I started seeing all these goat references. Everybody has to have a goat and everything. And then I saw Tom Brady with a goat and everything. So to me, I was just more paying attention to the symbolism more than anything, because I've seen people actually change over time. And I was like, when did black folks start doing devil horns? I thought that was like a rock and roll thing in the 70s. But they had adapted that symbology, and so that made me start digging more and knowing that it was more about Masons, because they have the same color coding at the black and white checkerboard. And if it's the black and white checkerboard, they have the Eye of Horus. Then it's the pyramid. And it kind of snowballs from there.
Indeed. It just seems that if you do your homework in this area, it's going to lead you in that direction. And I will say that there's other powerful secret societies. There's Jesuits, there's Knights of Malta, there's Knights Templar, but at the core, they're all Masonic. Okay, so just since you're okay, Larry, I don't mean to scare you off, and I'm not trying to make any accusations here, but when I first caught wind of you speaking out, it was because the mainstream media kind of attacked you, like, oh, look at Larry, he's blaming Freemasons and saying there's this, effeminate agenda in the NFL and NBA. And so a lot of mainstream media shared your tweet from August 29th, where you really called out this effeminate agenda. And I do my decoding. I'm just suspicious of everything I see in the mainstream, and I made a video about it. And I said, you know what? I love that an NFL athlete's doing this, but I got to scratch my head. And I reminded people there's an organic side to this too. But all the media emphasized the feminine agenda, the wording you used, and they went after you on August 29th, the day you made this tweet. The gematria of a feminine agenda sums to 82. And it was exactly 82 days from your birthday when this happened. And on the same day that you made that tweet, Prince's half-brother died in Kansas City, Missouri. And I thought that was interesting because Prince kind of dressed feminine. He wore the high heels, the makeup. He's associated with the NFL because he had that memorable halftime performance in the rain, from Purple Rain. It's the only time that ever rained at a halftime show was when he was performing from Purple Rain. But I thought it was so strange because the day of that tweet, August 29th, is the 241st day of the year, leaving 124 days remaining. And in gematria, Kansas City, Missouri equals 241 and 124. And I was just like, what are the odds of this? Larry Johnson, the Kansas City Chiefs star, and Prince's half-brother, on the same day, and the Chiefs are front runners for the NFL. I mean, do you have anything? Is it just coincidental, or?
No, it's probably some weird. It's probably a system code that's locked into. Like somebody else read me my gematria as far as my numerology chart and all that, and they said that my biggest enemy was the goat. So I take it there. So my enemy is basically Luciferian. So that lines up to I'm going to be on the other side, they're going to be on that side, and we're going to be always clashing and going against each other. So it could be looked at as that, but to me, I saw this a long time ago of guys, trying to do a commercial with pink cupcakes, and you see Cam Newton wearing a scarf over his head, and you see Todd Gurley doing a commercial with a pink tutu on. I mean, that kind of mess speaks for itself. It just happened to be a coincidence that I choose that day to speak out against it.
Yeah, there's absolutely an organic side, so it makes sense to me. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I've been saying the same thing even before I heard you say it. I don't know if you caught this past weekend, but the 49er running back Coleman hurt his wrist, and he stood there playing with his wrist in the middle of the field for like 5 minutes, and they had to cart him off for a wrist injury. Would you say this plays into this agenda?
It does, because before, if guys would sprain their MCL or tear their ACL, and guys used to be like, no, you gotta give me crutches or let me hobble off, or even if they sprain their ankle, they would hobble off.
Right.
It definitely does show that right now as far as being weak. And what's the coincidence that the first time a female gay coaches on a team, their team goes right to the Super Bowl. I mean, they write these scripts, and people are dumbfounded that these things happen. I was like, what do you expect? They wanted this to be. It's always that red versus blue. Like Kansas City is going to be the conservative side, and of course the blue liberal side is San Francisco. So they have to always match it up that way.
If you're not aware of this, I'm calling it the Joe Montana Bowl and the Impeachment Bowl. The Super Bowl is 54 days from Nancy Pelosi's birthday, who's from San Francisco, who's leading the impeachment charge against Trump. And it's 134 days from Trump's birthday, and impeach equals 134, as does Make America Great Again. So they've got, and again, they synced up the World Series with the day the World Series concluded was 138 days after Donald Trump's birthday. It was October 30th, and that was the same day Nancy Pelosi brought out the impeachment to the public, the impeachment inquiry to the public. Washington Nationals equals 107, and impeachment equals 107. The Nationals won the World Series 138 days after Donald Trump's birthday. Donald Trump's 138, Nationals is 138, Federal's 138, Dave Martinez is 138, the manager of the Nationals. And now you have the Chiefs, like the commander-in-chief, versus Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco 49ers, and the biggest star on the field is Patrick Mahomes, and the Super Bowl is 138 days after his birthday. Again, that Donald Trump number. So you're right. It is absolutely synced up with the politics and the red and blue. It's right on. And then the funny thing is Joe Montana also equals 54. It's his two teams playing each other. Do you have any connection? Do you still interact with any of the members of the Chiefs, like a Patrick Mahomes?
No, those guys are way. I'm way older than those guys. There's no one on that team I ever even played with. I barely know any of those guys' names now, except for Mahomes and Tariq Hill.
Sure. I was just wondering if you maintain any relations with the team, because again, I just wonder if these players are aware of the things that go on. So Patrick Mahomes, he defeated Len Dawson's 1964 touchdown passing record November 11th, 2018. And I don't know if you remember this story, but the same day he did that, his girlfriend and her father were in the stands, and reportedly the father died at the stadium in the game when he broke this record. And now the Super Bowl is exactly 64 weeks after he broke that record, the 64 touchdown passing record, and Kansas City Chiefs equals 64. And the whole Super Bowl is also synced up with Joe Montana's 64th birthday. It's 131 days from Joe Montana's birthday, and Super Bowl's 131. But I just wonder how many. Maybe you have a thought on this. Every year we document all these ritualistic deaths that are perfectly synced with the championship, college and pro. And I just wonder if the players realize what's going on, or if they're oblivious to it, and it's more like the satanic controllers of the league who are responsible. Maybe you have a thought on that.
I would say it was some of these players are picking out people for ritual murder. It was like that when I got in trouble for calling out Megan Thee Stallion and said her mom died for brain tumor. Right after that, she signed a deal with Rock Nation and Jay-Z. And you hear the rapper The Baby. He gets a record there. His record goes #1 the same day his dad died. So I think some of these players or some of these people do know that they're sacrificing their own relatives for fame. It was like that with Kanye West when his mother died. Mm-hmm. He came from debt, and all of a sudden he is where he is now. It's just, you go back, Rihanna, she took a picture with her cousin. A couple of days later after that, he was shot dead in Barbados or whatever. So it's just a trail. Like, if you look at all the industry entertainers, they sacrifice. This is what they believe in. They believe in Baal worship. Baal worship is you sacrifice someone you love for wealth and money. It's been like that. If you look at the Washington D.C. Capitol, if you go do an aerial view, it's a picture of an owl within the same city. It's the same thing of Moloch. It's the same belief system.
Indeed. Okay, that's kind of how I feel, but again, I'm on the outside looking in, trying to figure it out. Did you ever see anything happen to anyone you were close with in the entertainment industry like this?
Not really. Like I said, if it's a secret society thing, it's going to be secret. They only do it within people that are high up, and the rest of us were just kind of tagging along around them for a little bit. We weren't there to see the rituals or them actually going through their own business. That's why they were away from us at that time. But when we were with them, it was kind of like hanging out, partying, and all that. So.
Right. Okay.
But I would say I do have my suspicions when it came to Kanye West. After his mom died, I was close with one. His cousin had a baby who mysteriously died, and he was just posting this child death for a year, and then he turned around and another baby. So it feels to me that this is the cousin that I knew was close enough to Kanye that this young child died the same way Snoop's son's grandchild, his son died, was kind of the same way. Like they were newborn babies and they were just dead with no reason. It was like, was he sick or nothing? It's always a part of the same music entertainers.
Right, and it really is rampant. I mean, I've spent a lot of time the last 6 years just showing how many of these entertainers lose so many people so close to him. You might remember a couple years ago, Ben Simmons goes #1. They have him and his cousin that he brings to the draft with him on TV. They're part of the show, and then the next day you wake up and the news headline is that his cousin was ran over by a car after the draft.
Yeah, it was the same thing. Wasn't it like that with Kevin Durant? Didn't Kevin Durant have a half brother that he was hanging out with, and then he was shot dead too? And then Kevin Durant ends up in Brooklyn.
Well, and that whole death was synced up with the Warriors appearing in the NBA Finals this year, which they lost, and Kevin Durant supposedly got hurt. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really does go on all the time. It's so. I spend so much time doing this. It's just so rampant. I even lose track because it's just so many. Megan Thee Stallion, all these things you just brought up, I've covered over the years and a whole lot more. And it seems like almost every year on Super Bowl Sunday, you read about a former player, another athlete dying a couple years ago. It was supposedly an Indianapolis Colt who was hit by a drunk driver, and supposedly he was standing by the side of the freeway in the middle of the night. It's like, how does that even make sense?
Exactly. But when they own the media and they own all the entertainment moguls and they own the puppets, they cover these stories, so then the public like, oh man, that's a tough story. But people like you and I, like, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, man. They call us conspiracy theorists, and I call them coincidence theorists. And so Larry, it makes me sad to hear that even like someone because I'm living the same thing as you. All my good friends have abandoned me for speaking out. My sister hates my guts now, and her and I always had a good relationship. My mom and my dad, they still tolerate me, but they're not really interested in. Well, my mom a little bit, not my dad so much. But I'm living the same thing as you. And I was thinking, this Larry Johnson, man, this was one of the greatest football players we've seen in decades. And he's got to command some respect. But even still, you're saying that you've been abandoned, and that just shows me how powerful this cognitive dissonance is. What do you think it is about humanity that makes them hate us truth speakers so much, if you will?
It's not that they hate us. They hate the fact that there's a little tiny voice in their head, that says maybe we're right. And they rather hate us and shun us to just to 1 minute indulge in that truth, because then it unravels everything they ever believed in, and they have been lied to ever since they've been born. No one wants to hear they've been lied to in the ages when they were 50, 60, 70 years old. No one wants to know that they've been lied to. So you hold on to the lie so tightly because you don't want to know how deep this can go. Me and you are different because we're like, all right, this is the truth. How far down does this truth go? And we're willing to sacrifice everything, all in relationships, to find that truth, and we're better for it. But there's some people who are holding on so tight to this lie because they don't unravel who they actually are.
Indeed. I think that's well said, and you're right on. So, again, your inspiration, is part of your inspiration to speak out? I know you have a younger child. Are you trying to make a better world for them, or are you trying to right wrongs of the past?
To tell you the truth, man, I'm petty. I like to prove things. I like to prove people wrong. That's always been the key to my success when I played football was, if somebody told me I couldn't run 2,000 yards, I run 2,000 yards. If somebody told me that you could never make a Pro Bowl in the National Football League, I make the Pro Bowl in the National Football League. And people told me this is what reality is, and you have to accept it. I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to prove you there's a different reality you don't know about, and I'm going to dig deep enough, and then I'm going to offend you with it. That's usually my thing. So it's not me building a better world. I want people to open their eyes and see what's going on around them, because it's going to come a time when you have to make a split decision. Are you going to go with the truth, or are you going to go with the lie? And I want to give you some time to digest that before you put in a situation where you're not going to be able to turn back.
Okay, I got it. I'm a little bit that way too, so I understand. I think a lot of people can relate with that. Another thing I'm curious about. Now, am I mistaken, or have you identified as a Hebrew Israelite?
That to me, that really don't make sense. In the book, there were Israelites.
Okay.
Hebrew. When they say black Hebrew Israelite, that makes no sense. In the biblical sense, Israelites were all black. So I identify. I should identify that because this is the history of what it is. But I also just are in following the Most High. It doesn't matter if we're Israelites. It doesn't matter if we're blue, brown, and green in a different religion. It matters if I'm following every single step in the book of God. That is what's going to get me to heaven. It doesn't matter from it. It helps that I'm an Israelite because we're a chosen seed and we're chosen to be set apart, but it don't guarantee you to get to heaven. So I kind of just live my life following the book of God, and I try to get everybody else, regardless if they're black or white, if they're Gentile or they're not. I want everybody to be able to understand his grace and long suffering.
I understand that. I actually get a lot of flack because I've spoken up about this too. I've always pointed out to people that the oldest person from the Old Testament, Methuselah, was black. There's the story in the books that have been removed from the Bible about how he gives birth to an albino child, Noah, and that weirds him out. So that is the sign that, yes, the original Israelites of the Bible were of a darker complexion. They were black. A lot of people get frustrated with me about that. How have you come to understand that is the truth?
Because like you said, Noah was albino. His son Japheth took on the whiter side. Shem, which comes from the seed, was Shem as father of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Ham, which is the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, that side. Once you understand that part of history, and you understand in Japheth's line, Ashkenaz, that's why you get the Russian, that's why you get the Israelis that are in Israel right now. They come from Ashkenaz and Japheth. They come from out of Russia, Khazaria, Sephardic, European Jews. That's where they come from. So when I started looking at the curses of the book of Deuteronomy 28:68, it says we were sent by ship into a land we would not know to worship wood and stone. That is where we are. That is what the tribe of Judah is. If they scurried from 70 AD, they fled persecution from Rome, flew into West Africa. Europe came down, took us from the transatlantic slave out of West Africa, and ended up over America and some of the Virgin Islands. And that's how I understood it. When I explained it to people, they don't want to hear it, but it just, I know this, it hurts them because they've been told all their lives that the Jews over there are the real Jews.
Sure. And to connect this to a point you made earlier about how, like, the time is near, we need to wake up and change our path now because time is short. Were you aware that last year, 2019, in August, according to the history books, it was the 400th year that since slavery, or the first slave ships had arrived in America?
Mm-hmm.
So Acts 7:6 talks about the 400 years of mistreatment in a nation not their own. And there's something interesting about that 7:6. In Gematria, Negro, Slave, Rasta, Blues, Barack Obama, they all equal 76. The Million Man March was on the day, leaving 76 days left in the year. But then the next verse, Acts 7:7, is about how that nation will be punished. And United States equals 77. And there's a huge racial element in this Super Bowl. ESPN called this the Year of the Black Quarterback on September 3rd, 2019, with a picture of Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. And the Super Bowl, it's in Miami Stadium, which is built on a Native American burial ground. A lot of historians say that a lot of the true natives were of African descent in the United States when the Europeans first arrived here. So with regards to the 7-7 piece and putting this racial element on the Super Bowl and how they connect these sports to what's going on with history and politics and everything else, I just noticed that if the Chiefs did beat the Niners, they would be tied at 7-7, and Jimmy Garoppolo equals 77. He just had 77 yards to advance to the Super Bowl, beating Green Bay. Green Bay 77. Bart Starr just died 77 days in the offseason before the Packers' anniversary establishment, August 11th. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, based on all this biblical prophecy, I mean, that there's things to support what you're saying. When you say things are near, like how close do you feel that it is?
I think in the next 4 years is very close. If you see the California fires, California has always had fires, but not at this rate. Australia had fires, not at this rate. The earthquakes that Puerto Rico got, not at this rate. The tornadoes and hurricanes that we have had in the Midwest last year, not at this rate. And that's only the things that they reported on. People don't understand. It's been 50 certain tornadoes in the Midwest area, and you only heard about 4 or 5 of them. If you check out of the news media that they're giving you and start looking around and doing your own investigation, you will find out judgment is already coming. He said that he would use judgment by the way of weather and the way of the earth be having birth pains. So the weather is acting crazy right now. It's not because of climate change. It's because judgment is happening. He doesn't move and strike and just boom, everybody's judged. He moves so slowly and meticulously to be able to punish those who are under punishment, and that's what we're going through right now. That's why the weather is the way it is right now.
Okay, I'm hearing that. Do you believe in weather warfare?
something they put out there so people can take away from what God really controls. There's nothing that goes on unless God allows it to happen.
Well, okay, think about this. During the time of Vietnam, the U.S. admitted that they were doing cloud seeding over Vietnam to increase rainfall by a huge percentage to flood out the Vietnamese troops who were dependent on their tunnels and, working their way through the jungle. So, I mean, weather warfare is really a real thing. I'm not discounting what you're saying, but do you, I mean, because to me the way I look at it is that the people who control this world, bankers, people that live off the misery of others, because the more destruction they create in the world, the more people need, for example, I mean, if a storm comes through town and does a bunch of property damage, well, then the government has to go out and get a loan from the central banks, and people who run those banks, which are private, they're making profit off of all of that interest. So do you ever look up at the sky and think like, what are all those trails left behind by the planes?
I mean, I do, but if you, I mean, I know where your head's at, but if you take it on a spiritual level, all those top 5 banking families, that's who the synagogue of Satan is. All those Rothschilds, who do they serve? They serve Satan. So basically, if you look at this thing as America or this world, this weather is like Job. Satan had to go ask God, could he test Job, and God removed the head from Job for Satan to even touch him, but not kill him. That's how it is with the weather. So if God is posting judgment on this world, and Satan has a device that can double its measure, wouldn't he go to God and say, I want to do this? And God said, well, I'm having judgment. I'm going to remove the hedge from certain countries so they can have this type of judgment, and that's what's happening. I don't doubt that they have devices they can do it, but I'm saying they have to have permission in order to do it, and that's why God is more powerful, because he allows it to happen.
I see. That all makes sense to me. To go back to your point last year about the terrible fires in California that really got rolling November 8th, 118. In Gematria, Paradise, California equals 118. Los Angeles, California equals 118. And Los Angeles also on the 118th meridian. This year, a year later, on August 11th, that's when the headlines really took off about Australia burning. And words such as death and homicide equal 118. They called those the deadliest wildfires in California history last year. Would you say that that's more organic, or again, do you think there's a possibility that there could be some manipulation to start these fires? Because just before the August 11th fires, if you go back, the biggest fire in California just before that was referred to as the Masonic Fire.
I think the people who understand the Bible and understand this world more than we do have already planned this whole world war. If you know anything about Albert Pike, mm-hmm. he was able to guess every one of these world wars, including the World War III. So I think they know what's going to happen. I think they just lock everything up as it goes on, so people keep faking like they are. They keep thinking that this is just climate control. I think they have thought about every single judgment and everything that's going to happen. They already know what's going to happen, so they line it up that way in order to tell you, like, hey, it's just math that it's coincidental. But I think that they purposely do this so they can confuse people into thinking that God is not real. That's the whole gist of this world, is to convince you God isn't real and this is Satan's world, which it is. He runs it, but it ain't his.
I agree. They do. That's definitely part of the programming in our society, is to get people to dismiss God and think that spirituality is part of the old world and now everything is science and education, and it's tragic. So I'm with you on that. Larry, you've been on for almost an hour. You're welcome to stay on as long as you want, but I know that you just did do an interview before this, and you're doing a lot of interviews, and you're a family man. Is there anything else you want to say? But
you got any more questions? Like 1 or 2 questions?
Well, I could trust me, man. I could ask you questions all night. I didn't want to be rude and keep you on here too long, because I knew you did an interview right before this. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl this year?
You know what it is? I'm going to watch it just up to the halftime, because I'm so interested in how they're going to put the Masonic symbolism of we need to love everybody and all the pyramid. I have Horus. I know I'm going to see the symbolism within the halftime show that Jay-Z's doing. So I'm boots on and I'm ready to go into that because I know I'm gonna post about it. I really want people to see what's really going on in front of their eyes because you've been waking people up. I've been waking people up. So I think this is like our Super Bowl of showing the symbolism of Masonic symbolism is the Super Bowl halftime show, and you're going to see a lot of those things during the commercial. So I'm going to watch the game up to that point.
Okay, that makes I'm always real interested in the halftime show too. Shakira, who's performing, did you realize the Super Bowl's on her 43rd birthday?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's going to turn 43 that day. In Gematria, football equals 43. So does Masonic. So does Yale. American football is credited to Walter Camp, who went to Yale and was likely a member of Skull and Bones. And what's interesting is, if you've ever seen me do my work on the Gematria decodes, I teach 4 base ciphers: the alphabetic order with the rules numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with the rules numerology. Her name is 122 and 50, like San Francisco and like Kansas City, and then it's 67 and 31 like Chiefs in Kansas City as well. So her name has all the numbers of the 2 teams that are meeting. And you're right, it's going to be chock full of symbolism. Again, Larry, want to say thank you so much for coming on. I hope in the future we could have you back because there's a million other things I'd love to ask you. And as time goes on, more will come up. But I just want to say again, I'm really appreciative of you speaking out and sharing this knowledge. It means a lot. And I think I'm a little bit more optimistic than you. I totally hear your attitude. You're more realistic, I'd say. But I just have to keep this optimism. Otherwise, I just get so depressed, honestly. And I just think if you keep doing what you're doing, man, it is going to open eyes. And I'm sure Twitter's making sure not as many people are seeing your things because if a lot of NFL fans realize that Larry Johnson, this former NFL great running back, was kind of spilling the beans and putting out some wisdom, I think that would open more eyes. So I hope you don't stop doing what you're doing. And again, I'm super grateful. I know a lot of people in this community are super grateful, and I hope we can talk again. So thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. Hey, it's because of you guys. I'm now working on getting my own podcast going and actually doing my whole symbolism show and all that from podcast because it was because of you guys. You encouraged me to actually step it up. I wasn't going to do anything. I was just like, I'll just stick to Twitter or Instagram. But then it's just that bug hits you that, you guys are doing great work. And I was like, well, I might as well do it too. So I'm working on getting my own podcast channel and everything up and like that. So when I got to get it going, I definitely love to come back on and we can obviously keep this conversation and opening up people's eyes too.
Hey, awesome, man. I will definitely be subscribed. Can't wait for that. If you ever want a guest to talk about Gematria, I would love to. And actually, Larry, I forgot to ask you one more question. And by all means, I'm totally expecting to know because this is short notice. But next Wednesday, I'm traveling down to New Orleans in Louisiana to educate that college campus about all of the murder rituals that have gone on in relation to their championship, Billy Cannon and beyond. A rapper in New Orleans, 5th Ward Weeby, was just murdered at age 42 days before his birthday, just 4 days before Clemson beat the Tigers with 42 points. 42 is this number stamped all over Black history. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. A few years ago on Jackie Robinson's birthday, the man who wore the number 42, the baseball player Oscar Gamble, died 42 days after his own birthday on Jackie's birthday. Rajuel Butler, the basketball player, died in a car crash like Jackie's son. And Don Lemon, the anchor from CNN, his sister supposedly fell through the ice on a pond and drowned and froze to death. All 3 of these celebrities, they were all black, and all of their names summed to 42 like Jackie. Number stamped all over Black history in a million ways. So I'm going to be down in New Orleans, going around the LSU, New Orleans, 5th Ward, educating people, trying to film a documentary. And I don't know if you got anything going on the next week from Wednesday, what is that, the 29th through February 5th, but if you would love to come, or if you'd be willing to come out there, I would love to have you pounding the pavement with me. If not, there will be future missions, but I'm just putting the invite out there.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Appreciate it, Larry. We'll be in touch. You have a great evening.
You too.
All right, take care, man.